Good morning, and welcome to a special edition of All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens, and as everyone who watches and listens to this show knows, my ultimate goal is to let any and everyone who has an interest in any aspect of aviation and aerospace know about every option and possibility, as well as inspire you to join us in one of the best industries in the world. A little biased about that, but yeah. As you may have heard by now, the Federal Aviation Administration, better known as the FAA, is in the recruitment and hiring mode for new air traffic controllers. The window of opportunity to apply is kind of like going to a special movie premiere in that it begins right after midnight, as in 12:01 a.m. this coming Friday, May 5th. With the help of the FAA's Office of Communications, I have a great panel of guests who will provide a detailed overview about being an air traffic controller and the intricacies of the rather thorough application process. But let me try to put this into context before we get started. With all that you hear in the news about air travel and how it's ramping up significantly, particularly since the pandemic, I think that it's very important to note that we have the best and safest air traffic system on the planet. I needed to say that because when I drop a few of these statistics on you for context, you'll start to understand why being an air traffic controller is such a great and specialized job. In the United States alone, there is an average of over 45,000 flights each and every day. And that works out to over 17 million flights annually, carrying an average of over 3 million passengers daily. If you've been to an airport lately, you know exactly what I'm talking about. By the way, that means that there are 5,000 aircraft in the sky at any one time. That includes commercial airliners, cargo, helicopters, military aircraft. I could go on and on. Let me throw in a couple of more facts real quick. We have over 5,000 airports, and the FAA air traffic system includes 520 air traffic control towers, 147 terminal radar approach control facilities, more about that later, and 21 air route traffic control centers. Yes, more about that later also. So today, we'll try to paint a picture that includes the application process, the training atmosphere, and the life in the day of being an FAA air traffic controller, whether it's in an air traffic control tower or sitting in front of a radar scope in an air traffic approach or center facility. So my panel includes Nicole Gage, the HR Services Area Director South for the Federal Aviation Administration. We also have Dwain Luther. He is the Division Manager for the FAA Academy Air Traffic Division out there in Oklahoma City. And then we have Yahay Obeid. He's the Operations Supervisor at one of the busiest towers around, at the JFK Tower in New York. It'd be fun to hear about that and what it's like for those guys up there. And then to add everything and kind of pull it all into perspective, we actually have someone currently in training. His name is Dwain Emsweller, and he goes by DJ, and he is currently a student at the FAA Academy Air Traffic Division out there in Oklahoma City. So welcome everybody to the show. Really glad to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's really great. So let's go ahead and kind of start things off. I wanted to kind of give a picture of what it's like to be an air traffic controller. So Yahay, I'm going to start with you, and if you could just tell us, what your routine is and what it is for those who are working in the control center or control tower with you and that type of thing. Give us a picture.
All right, like you said before, I am at JFK Air Traffic Control Tower. So my main function is to work here at the airport, on site at the airport, to manage the traffic that's at the airport. But when we think of air traffic control as a whole, we work together as a team We have approach control. We also have centers. So here at JFK Tower, um, the job is basically to ensure the safe and efficient flow of air traffic. It's an exciting job. You have to be engaged. You have to be focused at all times. You have to work as part of a team, but you're also independent at the same time. You get a lot of training to do this job to the point where you're comfortable to do the job. So everyone here is very comfortable doing the job. Of course, like with any job, it gets stressful. We deal with additional stress. Sometimes the weather comes in and we have to, work a little harder. When the weather comes in, we have to protect these airplanes. So our job is to make sure the airplanes are separated, they're safe, and everyone gets home to their destination safely.
Yeah, that's a great overview of that in terms of what you guys do. In with so the people that are air traffic controllers, and I'll just put this out to all of you. Is there a difference between working in the tower versus sitting in a dark room in front of a scope, coordinating traffic in that fashion?
Well, yes, big difference. Of course, because I've only worked at towers for the past 15 years. I've never worked at an approach control facility or a center facility. So I have a little a bias on that. And working at the tower, you get to see everything you're working. You get to see the airplanes. When folks come to fly, when they fly out, they could get to the airport. They usually think, hey, I need to check in my bag. I need to get through security. Hey, look at this nice plane that I'm board in, or is it an older plane? They never really think of the air traffic controllers, the folks that are in the background, basically ensuring that they get to their destination safely. So it's a team of us. So you have the folks at the tower. We worry about the airport environment. Then once the airplane takes off, we hand the aircraft to approach control. Approach control, they usually sequence planes into the airport and out of the airport. So they're like the middle people. And then you have the center environment where anything usually above 10,000 feet, the center would handle. So it's a different type of complexity for each type of facility. But I believe, like I said, again, I'm going to say working at the airport is probably the most exciting.
Yeah, so the people that work in the tower, that's the first people that a pilot will talk to in most planes. They're going to talk to somebody in ground control, and everything in reference to what they're doing at the airport. And then, as you mentioned, approach control or approach and departure is who they'll talk to after they take off and are sequenced into the system, followed by being handed over to what they call center. Then that then takes them wherever the destination is, from center to center, until they get to their destination airport, at which point they go back to approach and then to tower. And that's the sequence. I know it sounds like I'm, especially to you guys, saying something really basic, but a lot of the people that are watching and listening to the show aren't familiar with the terminology and with what you guys do. So I wanted to kind of make that clear about that. That being said, and I'll throw this to you, Nicole. What are the expectations in terms of one, the qualifications to even be considered to apply? Let's start with that.
Sure. So first, you have to cover a variety of eligibilities, which includes you must be a U.S. citizen, you must be registered with the Select Service, you must be younger than 31 years of age. As of the closing date of the application, which, as you said, it's May 5th through the 8th. So you must be under the age of 31 as of May 8th. You have to either have 3 years of general work experience or a 4-year degree leading towards a bachelor's degree, or a combination of both. And then you must also be able to speak English clearly enough to be understood over communications equipment. And you got to be willing to relocate to any FAA facility based on the agency staffing needs.
Yeah.
That's your beginning eligibility piece.
Sure. So one of the things that I know for sure is that air traffic controllers come from a lot of a diverse background. I mean, a lot of different backgrounds. They may have been in a completely different field and had always had maybe an itch for aviation or something like that, and now are pursuing a career in air traffic control. Dwain, you probably deal with that a lot with the people that come through the academy. Can you tell us a little bit about that in terms of what it is about air traffic control that appeals to people that may even change an entire career that was totally unrelated?
Absolutely, Vince. And I was actually one of those folks. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a fighter pilot as long back as I can remember. And then in second grade, I got glasses, and that dream kind of died. Always been interested in aviation, but I started my career with the FAA over 20 years ago, and I was working in logistics. And what I did was support the National Airspace System by sending the parts that the technicians would use to keep all the equipment up and running. I did that for 8 years, and during that time, my brother, younger brother, actually got into the Marine Corps, and he was stationed at Miramar as an air traffic controller, and that's when I really got the bug to become a controller. Actually spent 3 years trying to get in the Marine Corps to go out there and do that with him. Unfortunately, I wasn't successful on that, but I did get hired on with the FAA as a controller, and it was a great experience coming through. And I can say, coming through, we had all walks of life represented at the in the classes, and I still see it to this day. We have some people that when they start this program, they have no idea what air traffic control is really about. Maybe their friends told them, hey, this is a good paying job, you should try it. And they come in and we start building that base knowledge for aviation so that they can be prepared for their initial training. So I don't think there's any one particular job out there that says, man, you're going to be a great air traffic controller, you should go do that. It's all those little things, those little things. Somebody may be really good at multitasking and doing a lot of things at one time. Maybe they have an extremely good memory. And some of them, it's just really being aware of what's going on around you. I've seen all those traits coming through. My boss, he was air traffic controller as well. He likes to talk about how he was in marching band, and in marching band, you had to remember the music and you had to remember where you were
and
going
your
to be.
steps and all of that. My dad was a band director, so I know.
Yeah, and all those things. And he said, that really helped me be a controller because I was used to, all of these things and putting it all together to make one great package. So I think that's kind of what I see a lot of in the individuals that come through the FAA Academy.
Yeah. So, and I'll put this both to you and to Nicole. One of the things that I know a lot of people worry about in terms of being an air traffic controller, because as was mentioned earlier, it is a stressful job. There's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, making sure that planes stay separated and stay on the paths they're supposed to be on and land where they're supposed to land, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a lot of responsibility with that, with planes full of passengers, as I mentioned the stats earlier. So my question to you and Nicole is, and one of the things that I think people kind of worry about is that initial assessment. It's a test that they have to take that kind of evaluates them. What can you guys give in terms of insight about that and maybe lessen those worries?
Well, that's a great question. And well, after you meet those basic eligibilities that I talked about earlier, then everybody that meets those and applies for the position, they'll have to take what's called the Air Traffic Skills Assessment, and it's often called the ATSA. And that is an aptitude assessment, and there really isn't a way to prepare for that. It's an aptitude. Either you have it or you don't have it. The best way we can share for you to prepare for that is to eat a good breakfast and get a good night's rest.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything to that, Dwain?
I was going to say, going through it, like Nicole said, there's not really any way that you can prepare for it, but going into it, just go in, do your best. And I really like that, we continuously try to improve this process because we also partner with the Civil Aeromedical Institute through the FAA, and they actually do research on some of the students as well, so that we're continuously looking at what we are grading our aptitudes towards. So it's not just one test from 1950 that we're still doing. This is an ever evolving test so that we can try to get the best applicants to come in and join the ranks of controllers.
Yeah. With I was just thinking about the qualifications in terms of the test, and I know I was thinking about now. The different assignments. So it's interesting to me, and I just learned this fairly recently, that you guys determine where somebody's going to go as a controller before they even start training. So you determine if they're going to be a tower person or if they're going to be in approach or center on the scope. So how much of their background along with the test assessment goes into that decision as to where they end up going?
So we get our
Training.
schedules in advance for en route and our tower training requirements, as well as our Tetra, which is our 10, 11, 12 radar. And after everybody clears all their pre-employment requirements, which includes the drug test, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, which is called the MMPI, their class 2 medical exam and physical, their fingerprinting, their federal background investigation. Once all of those things have been completed, then the HR specialist is going to look at what class is available next and meets the agency needs, and they'll be placed in the next available class, whether it be tower or en route.
So it's based more on need, not necessarily your aptitude or whatever. It's just what you guys need. I think that's really important to point out because some people may think, well, are they going to decide if I'm going to be a tower or whatever? So a controller is a controller. So the responsibility level to me is the same wherever you are, whether you're on the scope or up in the tower or a combination of both. Let me go to you, DJ, since we're talking about training and everything. Tell us a little bit about, tell us how you even decided to become an air traffic controller, and then we'll talk about your training experience as well.
Okay, so for me, I have no aviation background, but one of the things that made me decide to become an air traffic controller is my father. So kind of like Dwain, I had somebody who was already a controller, and my father just happened to be a controller for the U.S. Air Force, a retired controller. So I remember at a young age, I got to see how much he enjoyed the career and how rewarding the career was. So I kind of pushed it off until I graduated college. I was before I went to air traffic control, I was pre-med. I was really not even considering air traffic control. But then, I got to have a talk with my father, and he kind of explained to me how this is one of the one and only high-paying careers, which is a low risk, high reward. Because if you think about it, if you go to medical school or any other doctorate school, you're paying tons of money. Whereas the academy, you're not really paying anything. They're paying you to go to the academy. They're paying for your food. They're paying for your housing. So it was more of kind of like trying it out, seeing if I would be a good fit by taking the ATSA and by just going through the academy. So that's kind of my background of how I got into the academy. Now that I'm here, it's pretty good. Like, I've never been in like a schooling environment in where everybody wants you to pass. You know what I mean? It's not more like you're going to like a private university without to get your money or anything like that. I feel like my instructors all want me to pass. And it's like, and I kind of went into this career thinking I would be the only one coming off the street bid. And mostly my whole class is like that. So it's not like it's just a bunch of pilots or CTI graduates coming into the academy. It's all of the above. It's like a mixture of everything. And so I would say like my instructors make it very easy to learn because they know where I'm coming from. I feel like I remember the first day I said this is kind of a stupid question. And my first thing my instructor said, there's no stupid questions in here. This is an open learning environment. We all want you to pass. And so I guess that's made it easier for me to learn here. But
yeah. So what's the day-to-day like for you? Classroom versus studying on your own versus, kind of a lab situation where you're in a kind of a simulated tower and things like, how does that all look?
Okay, so I'm en route, so I'm center, and this is only my second week. So last week is just a bunch of basics, getting your badge, a lot of background information.
I'm sorry, did you say this is only your second week in training?
This is my second week. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
They
I just
gave me
started.
a real newbie.
Yeah.
That's cool though. Go ahead.
But yeah, this is my second week. So right now we're still kind of in like the basics information, but pretty soon we'll start doing like evaluations to kind of test what you've learned through teaching and stuff like that. But like in terms of studying, I do a lot of studying on my own because that's just me individually. I guess it depends on the person, when it comes to studying after class, I just like to study things so it sticks. And so that I know that I have the information down before I move on to the next lesson. But for day to day, right now I'm on night shift. So I'm going in at 3:30. I'm leaving at 12. And then I do most of my study time in the morning before class. Whereas last week when I was in day shift from, I believe it's 7 to 3:30 p.m., I do most of my studying in the evening. So it varies. It's not, I haven't looked at the schedule, but I know it could vary from like 1 week day shift, 2 weeks night shift, and then 1 week night shift, 2 weeks day shift. So it's just, it kind of depends right now.
Yeah, hey, you have some. Am I saying that right, by the way?
Oh, what'd you say?
No, I was talking to Yahay, and am I mispronouncing your name?
No, you got it right.
Okay, cool. So, Yahay, you've been through this already. You've been a controller for a long time. Any tips for the newbie here, DJ?
Well, I got a few tips. So I went to Oklahoma City 15 years ago. Coming from New York, I wasn't really familiar with tornadoes and tornado sirens. So, you were there on your second week. If you hear any tornado sirens, don't get alarmed. Make some friends with your classmates. Get together and study together as a group. We used to meet at the library, and so we can study together, and that was very, very important. So to help each other out. The other tip is get plenty of rest. We had some folks that did go out often, and they had fun. Oklahoma City was fun for them, and they did struggle. And the ones that took class seriously, they made out okay. Like DJ said, the instructors are there to ensure that you're successful. I mean, you really have to want to fail in order to fail. You really have to be reckless. You have to, not care that you've even made the trip to Oklahoma City. So just stay focused and work together as a group. That'll help you because your classmates are going to know certain things that you're not going to know, and you're going to know some things that they're not going to know, and you're going to help each other out.
Yeah. What was the transition like for you from school to actually working in the tower? I know there's a in between that you guys do further training after you finish the academy.
Yeah, so the academy is really, they give you an airport and they say, this is the airport, or this is basically give you an example airport, an example facility, and you have to succeed at that level. If you succeed at that level and you do go to the next facility, like for me, it was the Academy Airport. So when I succeeded out of the Academy Airport, I came to JFK Airport, and now they told me here at JFK, forget everything you learned in Oklahoma City because you've proved that you're successful at that type of level. Now you need to learn everything here because there are different rules, different procedures. And it was 2.5 years of training here at JFK until I was on my own. So for anyone that leaves Oklahoma City, it's another 1 to 3 years until they're fully certified. So for any applicants, just know this for sure. You're going to be trained. You're going to be trained in Oklahoma. You're going to be trained at your facility. And even after you're certified, you're going to continue to train throughout your career. So training is priority here and at any FAA facility. So training will always be there to follow you.
Yeah. Dwain, you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the transition, it's a good transition. And like Yahay was saying, when you come through the academy, what we're doing is we're teaching you the basics, and we're seeing if you can remember the basic information and then apply it through simulation. And once you do, you're going to go to your first facility. That's based on how you scored in the class. So the highest score in the classroom, they get their first pick of facilities, and that can make some people very happy. Or if you didn't score as well, they might not be as happy about that because we don't place in the highest level facilities right now. We have level 4 through level 12 facilities out of the tower, especially they place at 7 and below. The centers are a little different because they're all higher level, but it's still based on your ranking on where you're going to go geographically. And once you get there, that's when you start training. And some of the training you're going to do at your facility is going to be probably some of the exact same lesson plans that you just had at the academy, to really take that information and make sure you know it before they start teaching you all the things that are local, that are the important differences at every airport geographically, and all of the different procedures, like Yahay was saying, especially in the JFK area. I know that y'all have a ton up there. I've worked with a few people that worked up there at N90. So yeah, it's a great transition once you go, and everybody is here looking to make our students successful.
Yeah. Nicole, one of the viewers right now has asked a couple of questions going back to being concerned about or being curious about the assessment portion of it. You guys mentioned earlier that there really isn't any way to prepare for that, but I got two questions from them in regards to that. Is there anything else that you guys can add about the assessment, which I mentioned earlier is something that a lot of people seem to be concerned about?
Sure. I mean, I have actually taken the air traffic skills assessment because in this position, I wanted to see what it was like. And I can tell you firsthand, there really isn't a way to prepare for it other than really just getting a good night's rest and being your absolute best that day. And, prepare to have, to spend 1 to 3 hours taking the assessment and, just eat a good breakfast. That's really the only advice that we could share. And Dwain, if you have something additional to add.
Not really. I mean, you really can't prepare for it. I mean, obviously there are going to be some things involved in there with your ability to focus and follow directions. And there's going to be some math and things like that because controllers deal with math, but there's really nothing that you can prepare that's going to, say, yes, if you do this preparation method, you're going to have a better score. There's just nothing like that out there.
Okay, so let's go from another angle then, because I appreciate you guys reiterating that. But this gives me also an opportunity to talk a little bit about Yahay's background in terms of his education. And speaking of that, there are a number of, I call them aviation-centric schools, universities, that have air traffic control tracks or as part of their professional aviation program. So that being said, what do you guys have to say about that in terms of people that may actually go to school to focus on studying air traffic control before whatever the courses are or the curriculum is that they would do before applying, or should they do that and still your application process starts this Friday. So if they're interested or if they're currently in school, should they go ahead and apply anyhow, et cetera? Just trying to get a little bit of background on that.
Sure, absolutely. If somebody is interested in being a controller, absolutely go ahead and apply. And a college education is invaluable. I would never want to deter somebody from going to college. And we have great partnerships with all of our collegiate training institutions. I believe over 30 of them. And so I would never want to deter somebody from getting a college education. But at the same time, a college education is not required to be an air traffic controller. So it's really a personal decision on whether or not you want to go ahead and make the leap and go for it now, or gain that, get that college education that will be with you forever.
Yeah. Or go for it now and then work on your college once you become a controller. And that being said, speaking of the college education, Yahay, you actually went to Vaughn College right there in New York, right across from LaGuardia, and I believe studied air traffic management, correct?
Yeah, correct. My major was airline management and my minor was air traffic control.
Okay, that's right. So it was as a minor. How did that play into your decision to become a controller, or just in terms of helping you with that as a career?
Well, like with anything else, I had a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. So plan A was to become a pilot. I was going to a flight school at the same time I was going to college at Vaughn College. And I was, again, my minor was ATC. And then I decided, the pilot route was going great. It's just you run out of money. It costs a lot of money to become a pilot. And I started thinking of air traffic control. I had a few friends that were going for ATC, and my backup was ATC. So I decided to go for it. I decided, thinking, okay, I ran out of money. I can't finish my flight training, and there's this opportunity here for a federal career, and I'm still in the aviation field. Why not? So I applied, and from there, it's just ATC became my plan A, plan B, and plan C.
Yeah. Dwayne, that brings me back to something that I was thinking about earlier when you were talking about the people that the variety of people that come to your school. And that is that a lot of people come to become an air traffic controller and have no background in aviation, which brings me, so you had an interest in aviation, you wanted to be a pilot. Yahay wanted to be, sorry, Yahay, wanted to be a pilot, but you also have had people come in that didn't have that as a goal. So I just wanted to kind of get you guys' perspective on people that, or I'm really asking, have you had people that never even thought about aviation as a career, but then come in and become an air traffic controller?
Absolutely. One of the people that I went through training with was actually a teacher in New York, and he left his job as a teacher to come try air traffic control, and he successfully made it through the program. I've also talked to students that had engineering degrees. We've had somebody come through that was a professional athlete. Really, we get all walks of life, and it's people, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard the story. Yeah, I was doing something else and this sounded interesting and I wanted to give it a try.
DJ, you wanted to be a doctor. Now you're on your way to be an air traffic controller. So far, so good?
Yeah, so far so good. So far so good.
Of course you're going to say that. You're in your second week. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. Listen, we had somebody, another viewer that was asking, I thought a really good question with regard to um, military transition. So somebody that was an ATC in the military and transitioning to become an ATC civil. Can you guys give some perspective on that, Dwain and Nicole?
Well, I'll start, and then I bet Dwayne probably has some additional information to share with his experience. So we have two different types of entry-level air traffic controller hiring. We have our track one, which is the announcement that's about to open May 5th through the 8th. And that is for, those CTI graduates and those people that have absolutely no experience like DJ here that wants to get into the field. And then we have our track two announcement. And that is for those that have previous air traffic controller experience. And those are the announcements that I would guide this individual towards. However, he's welcome, he or she is welcome to apply to either of the announcements if they believe that they feel qualified. But we have those track two announcements at least twice a year, and then usually in the spring and the fall, and then additionally as needed.
Okay, that's really helpful. Dwayne?
Yeah, I was going to say, all the information that Nicole has, that I get all of that information from her. So definitely the expert there on just the practical side of it, as far as military controllers making that transition into the FAA. A lot of what I have heard is you have to be very flexible when you come into it. The controllers that come in from a military position into the FAA, if they're flexible and willing to learn, they're very highly successful. The ones that struggle with the changeover, because things are just a little different between military and FAA controlling, they struggle a little more.
Where have I heard that before? Same thing with pilots. Yeah, yeah. Yahay, have you had experiences or just know anybody that came from the military that now works at JFK Tower or is an ATC?
Yeah, we've had a few come through, some that were successful and some that were not successful.
Oh, wow. Probably for the reasons Dwayne was saying.
Yeah, it's it's a completely different, almost a completely different job if you look at it. So while you might have the fundamentals, and it's always good to have the fundamentals, it's not going to be an easy transition.
Yeah. Let's get down to some brass tacks. And let me go back to you, Nicole. Tell us about the application process. I understand that it's like 3 or 4 hours that it takes, and there's certain things that you need to have ready with you as you go through it online, and that type of thing. Can you give us a little bit more insight to that?
Sure. So, the application process is really not complicated at all. Of course, we're going to tell you, read the entire announcement, and it is lengthy. But there's so much information you need to be aware of and make sure that you abide by and provide all documents that pertain to you to help you become eligible and qualified for this position to continue moving forward into the next steps. And so the application process should take less than 15 minutes. It's preparing for the application process. So making sure that you have your resume ready, all your work experience documented to include hours worked per week, and just very detailed information. And we are actually going to be hosting some webinars as well. I'll post those in the chat. But to give additional information about what it takes in your resume, as well as some videos that will be available soon as well at our BATC website. So the actual process of applying doesn't take a long time. I think it's the entire process in totality that can take a while. The air traffic skills assessment, like I said, could take 1 to 3 hours. If you're successful in that, then you're going to begin the clearance process, and that requires your drug test, your fingerprinting, your MMPI. It's a variety of things to make sure that you are the best person to control traffic and take care of transportation for the flying public. And so that process can take can take a little while. It could take 6 months or even more. But it's definitely worth the wait.
Yeah. So, okay, I had it. I had it a little bit wrong then. So the actual application doesn't take very long online, but preparing for it and having all your ducks in a row is what may take some time.
That's right.
Okay, gotcha. And you, DJ, you gave us some background before about your experiences, but I'm going to go to Dwain. Dwain, tell us about the new recruit, the new student that comes to set of students that come for to start their training at the academy, and kind of give us what that feels like and what the flow is.
Okay, so the first part of it, actually, we don't even have them come to the academy. We onboard the new students virtually, and we do our air traffic basics through a virtual environment. And that's a 19-day course where we give them the aviation basics, start talking about separation, weather, and all of those things to get them ready to come out here for their initial qualification training. That first course, basics, you must pass the final written test with a 70% or better to be able to move on to the next stage of training. So once they've passed that, we give the students about 5 days, give or take, so that they can actually travel to Oklahoma City for their lodging where they're going to stay while they're here. Then they'll go into one of what we call our initial qualification courses. We have one for tower, one for center, and we have one for terminal radar that is currently only serving the New York TRACON. And sorry about that. Forgot to quiet that. After that, they'll go into it, and we always start with kind of a building block approach. We'll start talking about the theory. We talk about some of the things they did in basics to really make sure that they understand that material well. And then we start adding in part tasks where we'll talk about a theory, and then we'll do a small application in a low fidelity way. And as we continue to build, we eventually get to high fidelity simulation where they are in there working with an instructor one-on-one and practicing the different rules and techniques that they need to be successful. Throughout that process, we also have what we call a skill check, where they are going to be working with an instructor, and the instructor is just going to let them work the problem. And at the end, let them know where they saw strength, where they saw areas for improvement. So our biggest thing is just that one-on-one feedback for everything that we're doing with the students, so they get the positive reinforcement on what they're doing correct. And we have the opportunity to mold them and teach them when there's something that they can improve.
Thank you. That's a great overview. Yeah, hey, coming back to you, you have had a really great career so far with what you're doing in air traffic control. You've been promoted. You're currently a supervisor. Can you give us a little insight about that in terms of the opportunity to grow into a position beyond just sitting on a scope or standing in a tower, but actually becoming a supervisor and other type of management responsibilities?
So growth opportunities are endless. Really, sky's the limit. But a lot
No
of
pun
these air
intended.
traffic controllers, a lot of the air traffic controllers actually love what they do. They would do it for 20, 30 years. That's how much they love it. They don't want they wouldn't want a promotion because they love what they do. Because when you do get promoted, you don't get to work air traffic. And we're talking about folks joining this career. You have to do something that you love. And a lot of the controllers love what they do, and they don't want that to change. While I am a supervisor, I don't get to work the air traffic. I only get to do it just to stay current, about 8 hours a month. So I don't get to do the actual job, but I'm part of that environment. I still enjoy being part of that environment. But when you get in and you're successful, you can almost apply for any other job within the FAA. And since you're now a federal employee, you can work for any other sector. You can work for any other agency. You can work for the railroad. You can work for the highways. They're all federal jobs. And so it opens up the door to do anything else. And I started my federal career at the age of 21 with the Transportation Security Administration with TSA while I was still going to college. And I took that job, one, because I wanted to get my foot in the door to be at the airport. Two, it worked out really well because it kicked off my federal service time to be a federal employee. So again, while some folks, if they don't get hired during this hiring period, you can apply for other federal jobs just to get your foot in the door and prepare for the FAA. And we mentioned to prepare and go into USA Jobs and creating a profile and a resume. And I tell folks this all the time. If you want to create a good resume, a good profile, in order to apply for this job, look to spend about 6 hours online. You don't have to do it in one day. You don't have to do it in one shot. But a good resume takes about 6 hours to create online because you will have a resume creator through the usajobs.gov website.
Yeah. I was listening to what you were saying and thinking about the fact that your career has it's been quite a path. I mean, first you as you said, you worked at TSA while you were going to college, and you wanted to be a professional pilot. And then you made the shift and you discovered air traffic, and now you've been in air traffic controlling for 15 years, I believe you said. So basically, did that scratch that itch?
Repeat the question again, clarify.
Oh, I'm just saying, with you obviously love what you do now and have for a long time, but you that wasn't your original path. And I guess the point I'm trying to make for the audience is that we never quite know what our path is going to be. But once you do discover it and move towards that direction, and that applies to you too, Dwain, with what you said about wanting to be a pilot, a military pilot, and ending up doing what you're doing now and running a training facility for air traffic management. So either one of you, I'm just trying to get a perspective with that in terms of how that applies to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, you have to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Just make sure they're focused plans. Like I said, my plan A was to become a pilot. Plan B was to become an air traffic controller. Plan C was to become an airline manager. So they're all in the same field. They're all in the aviation field. They're all tied together. And I worked at JFK. My first internship was 20 years ago here at JFK. And I transitioned to the airlines in 2004 before getting hired with TSA in 2005 and finally getting hired by the FAA in 2008. So they're all tied in together. You just have to somewhat focus your energy onto what you want to do on a field. You don't want to have a plan A to be a doctor, plan B to be an engineer, and plan C to work at a bank. They're kind of too far apart. So if you focus them together into one field, it will help you grow your career and grow your interests into getting something specific that you love to do.
Yeah, well said. DJ, you on your path, you talked about going to school and studying pre-med and that thing, and then you had a conversation with your father, who did air traffic control in the Air Force, I believe you said, and so you made the shift. What's your have you determined what your long-term goal? I mean, you're obviously wanting to, graduate and move into the next phase of air traffic controlling. But what's the long haul for you? What do you think you want to do down the line?
Down the line, I kind of want to be in a position like Yahay's, eventually be like a supervisor at a center or a manager. And kind of what Yahay was saying with like having a focus, plan A, plan B. I got to a point where when I was studying pre-med, I realized it wasn't my passion. Studying for different tests, I would find it hard to study. You know what I mean? Where now when I'm studying the maps, when I'm studying different things involved with air traffic control, it's not like I have to force myself to study. I actually want to study so I can learn and understand what my instructor is saying. And so kind of speaking on that, I found that my passion is in the aviation industry. Eventually, like I said, I want to be like Yahay, like a supervisor for a center or a manager. But right now, it's just focused on the academy, focused on, learning the different things so I can be successful in the academy and then eventually certifying, becoming air traffic controller.
So you're loving what you're doing and you love aviation. What would you recommend? You're in your second week, so you're just getting started, but what would you recommend to others your age or younger that are thinking about, wanting to do something in aviation and, hey, maybe being a air traffic controller might be the answer?
I would say to do some research and maybe shadow or go visit a center or facility. I had the opportunity to visit Sarasota Tower, and I got to talk to some of the instructors there, and they told me how much they love their job. And one of the things that got me in this industry is I never talked to an air traffic controller who didn't love their career. And you see a bunch of stuff online that say it's stressful, people don't like it. But when you actually sit there and talk to a controller, you will never find one that says they don't like their career. And so my advice would be, if you want to be a pilot, talk to a pilot, connect with a pilot, or just go to the airport and see what you can do to learn more about that industry.
I think that's really great advice, actually, is to go do that. And if I'm not mistaken, Nicole, hasn't the FAA opened back up the opportunity to visit facilities again?
Yeah, I would have to check on that. Dwain, are you
Yeah.
aware?
I think it's kind of on a limited basis right now. I know we do have some facilities that still have a little more strict regulations as far as the visitor policy, but that's definitely one where if you reach out to the facility, they could probably let you know what their current stance is if they're accepting non-mission critical visitors.
Yeah. Before we start to wrap things up, I wanted to maybe we can go to you, Nicole, on this. Because people are asking, okay, so where do I apply? So what kind of information can you share with that?
Sure. So all of our job announcements are posted at www.usajobs.gov. And all they'd have to do is search for air traffic controller, and that would be the link. We also advertise on a variety of platforms, and we'll be sending out the link, of course, by Friday, so they can apply for this position. I'd also like to add a lot to some of the points that were brought up here about the FAA has a lot of jobs in support of aviation other than air traffic. And if air traffic was not successful for you, there's so many opportunities in the world of aviation. I wanted to be funny. I've worked with Dwain for many years, and I didn't know that he wanted to be a pilot. I also wanted to be a fighter pilot, and my vision was also bad. And I have been working in the aviation industry for over 20 years, and found so much joy in support of it, even if I'm not in the air.
Yeah. So when, oh, this is great. When did you get the aviation bug and thought you wanted to, or knew you wanted to be a fighter pilot?
Well, I am of the era where Top Gun came out, and I loved that movie and the excitement and thrill. I think that's been an inspiration to so many young people. And I was one of them, and it just didn't work out for me, but I am so happy that I am still part of the aviation industry, just in a different capacity.
So not to put you on the spot, but did you get your private pilot's license maybe?
No, I didn't. My vision is absolutely horrible. So
Oh, wow.
I
So it's a
never
medical
pursued
thing.
it.
Yeah, gotcha. So I was going to go back to asking about. I was going to mention it based on what you were saying. There are a couple of things that are coming up. One this afternoon at 2:00 on LinkedIn. No, not LinkedIn. On Instagram.
Yes.
And that, what is that? That's the. I don't have it in front of me. Oh, it's going to be a question and answer with air traffic with actual controllers. So I think you guys are doing that on Instagram, and then tomorrow around 5 p.m. you're actually doing a workshop.
Yes, there's going to be an air traffic controller application and training workshop. It's going to be on a Zoom webinar. And there'll also be air traffic controllers as well as hiring specialists available to discuss the application process, eligibility training, and just really overall what it takes to be a controller. And it is at 5 p.m. Eastern time.
Great.
And I'll be on that one as well.
Oh, you will?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Popularity.
It's been a busy week.
Just
No, the
messing with
busy is
you,
Nicole's
Dwain.
though.
So as we kind of wrap up, I always like to kind of get your last words and of advice and input to the viewers and listeners about specifically about the opportunity in air traffic control. I'll start with you, Nicole. What kinds of things would you tell people that are considering this, that are getting ready to apply, that are interested, and things like that?
Be patient. Follow all the requirements. Be patient. Act promptly as you move through the process. As the agency reaches out to you, check your spam. A lot of our correspondence is done via email in the beginning stages. And be patient and wait through the process. Last year, we had over 57,000 applications for this position, which is wonderful to see so much excitement and enthusiasm around this awesome career. But the more applications we have, the longer the process takes. So just be patient, and and if for some reason this doesn't work out, keep federal employment as an opportunity. Air traffic controllers can make six figures if successful out in the field, and so we need good people. And if you're interested at all, go ahead and drop your application in.
Great, thanks. Yahay, how about you? What kind of input or advice would you give?
I tell people, being in air traffic control, it's like a video game, but playing a video game that you can't lose. Sometimes it's a puzzle that you have to figure out. It's fun. It's exciting. It's a very rewarding career. You get to, serve the flying public and also serve your country as a federal employee, and having the benefits, having the stability, being able to go home to your family every night, being able to, like I said, having the federal benefits, whether it's health insurance, 401k, to the pension, to getting days off. You can't beat it. There are no other careers that offer you the benefits package that we are offered. And I won't even talk about the pay, because I don't want people to join this career or profession for the pay. It's a well-respected profession. And if you love the aviation industry, you will love this profession and you will love this job.
Very good. Well said. Nicole, I need to come back to you for a second. I had a question. Somebody was asking about the age requirement and how strict is it. I thought I had heard from somebody else from the FAA say that there are exceptions. Is that true, or is it pretty straightforward?
So for entry level controllers, it is a hard and fast rule. It's part of public law. There's no deviating that. The only exception would be if you have prior been a controller and you were coming back into the agency, but your original appointment was before the age of 31. And you would need to provide proof of that with your application.
Got you. Okay. Dwain, how about you? What words of advice do you have?
So my first words of advice, listen to Nicole when she says, be patient, but be prompt. It took me a long time to actually get through the process. There was a little bit of a breakdown because being a federal employee already, it was a little different than what was going on at the time when I was hired. So it took me about 9 months to get through. But if you provide everything that's being asked when it's being asked for, you are greatly going to speed up the time that it takes to get through the process to actually get a date to come on board. And then I'd like to say, when you do come on board, you're going to get out of the program what you put into it. We can have the best instructors in the world here at the Academy, and they can teach you everything they know, but what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Take the time to study, take the time to work well as a team with your teammates, and just know that when you come here, you have one goal, and that goal is to get through the Academy successfully so you can go work with Yahay or in one of the centers or one of the terminal approach controls, because that's really where you're going to get the most benefit coming through the Academy.
DJ, you are in your second week. You're in training, so you've got some time to go. Again, any other piece of advice besides what you've already said to anyone else that might be considering doing this?
First, I would kind of say what Dwain said is be patient and be prompt. This application process isn't like a next week thing, but, I got in pretty fast in terms of previous years because I was prompt and I did what was asked of me. And second, I would say is just take the leap. I mean, like I said before, it's low risk, high reward. You're not paying any money to go to the Academy. It's just the opportunity that I would tell anybody to take if they're interested in the aviation field. And then lastly, once you get past the application process and you're at the Academy, it's just know you belong. Once you take the ATSA and you pass and you get your offer letter, you belong there. So if you don't pass, it's nothing to do with your instructors. It's nothing to do with the program. It's on you. It's like, I feel like if I don't pass somehow, it's because I didn't put in the time necessary after class to learn the material. So it's just knowing you belong once you get to the Academy, because you passed the test, you did all the requirements, you're supposed to be there.
Well said. And I think that's a good note to end on. I really want to thank all of you for being available, taking the time, and providing the information and insight that you have about being an air traffic controller. I happen to think it's a very cool job, and so I really hope that a lot of people that are paying attention to this, make the step and apply, and I wish them all the best. Also wish you guys the best in terms of all your aspects of what you do for the FAA. Nicole, I really like what you said, and I think actually you and a couple of you said about you and Yahay. Sorry, Yahay. But anyhow, what you guys said about the opportunities beyond being a controller. I mean, this is about being an air traffic controller, but there are so many other things in aviation. There are so many other areas in the FAA that are opportunities. And the FAA has great internship programs and other types of programs to transition people into some of the things that they do, whether it's coming out of college or post-college or whatever the case may be. So I think it's great that you guys brought that up. And I appreciate having all of you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that does it for us. As I said, as always, the primary objective with all things aviation and aerospace is to not only share aviation and aerospace career opportunities, but to expose the up-and-coming generation of aspiring young aviation professionals to the plethora of opportunities that are available. and inspire any and everyone who has ever considered or thought about pursuing a career in the aviation industry. To see more aviation and aerospace career videos like this one, please go to my Private Air Media video library on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, or you can listen to the podcast version on Spotify, Apple, or any podcast listening platform of your choosing. I hope that you enjoyed this great conversation and look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meantime, if you have any other questions or anything, feel free to contact me or contact the FAA directly, or I will pass you along to the person that you probably need to speak to. If you haven't subscribed already, I ask that you please do. But until next time, please take care, stay safe, safe flying if you're a pilot.